Okay. Good morning, Linda. Thank you for joining me on the ODAT Chad podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. I always say I'm so excited to talk to everybody, which is actually true, but so happy to have you on because so many of us suffer with money issues and you're a money expert. So
Yes.
uh, a money recovery expert. So we'll absolutely get into that. We're going to talk about the roadmap to financial recovery. It's a program that you have. The second half of this call will be focused on a little bit of a workshop, which I love me a workshop, let me tell you. We're going to talk about the 6 steps to having a healthy relationship with money.
Yes.
I need a healthy relationship with money.
Everybody does.
Right. Yeah. So really excited to be talking about that. But let's take a step back. What I typically like to do is first start with your recovery journey.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about, your family of origin, and then we can talk about how drugs and alcohol affected your life. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah. So, kind of backing up, we'll start with the family of origin part. I guess overall, like family wise, I have myself and my sister who's younger than me. She's 3 years younger than me. And then my mom and my dad. So, my parents were, I refer to it as babies having babies. My mom was 15 when she had me, and
Wow.
my dad was 17. Or actually,
Okay.
no, my mom was 15 when she got pregnant, 16 when she had me. Not that that's a huge difference, but yeah, she was
I don't know.
15.
When you're 15, a year is a big deal. I
When
have
you
a
think, yeah,
I have a 15-year-old. I cannot imagine.
it's scary, isn't it? Yeah, could you imagine it? It was pretty much like a shotgun wedding. So the two families got together. With that, my parents got married in my Oma and Opa's living room on December 17th. So they would have got married in 1976. And then I was born in 1977, March that year. So my mom was married at 16 and had me at
Wow.
16. Got married to my dad. So yes, it's quite a story. Their background is quite a story, but yes, and they're still together to this day.
Are
So
they
I,
really?
yeah, yeah, which is kind of cool. Like,
That
of
is
course, they've
cool.
had their bumps, but as a whole, it's just so amazing to think that they've been together. So I'm 42, so they'll be married on December 17th for 43 years.
That is
No,
amazing.
is that right? Yeah, no.
Girl, don't make me do
Yeah,
math.
yeah, that
But
would make sense.
regardless, it is a long ass time. And
That
that
is a
is
long
just
answer.
shocking that
This is a financial expert trying to do fast math in her head, and it's not working.
nobody's judging. This is a shame-free zone.
So
Wow,
yes,
that's amazing. Okay, so and you said they got married in your Opa's living room. So does that mean you're
Oma and
Greek?
Opa's living room. I'm a Dutch.
Dutch. Okay, what do I know?
Yes,
Opa is
yes,
Dutch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So with that, I joke around about my baby pictures have me in my crib with like blacklight posters in the back. Like, I think my parents had like Kiss blacklight posters, and
Hilarious.
yeah, and I have baby
Wow.
pictures of me like with Labatt beer cases, just one on top of the other in the living room, and me pretending to drink it as a little kid. So
Wow.
yeah, talk about that being introduced into my life very early, which it happens all the time, right? So
Sure.
yeah, it was just alcohol has always been a part of my life.
Mhm.
So I don't remember a life without it. I'm really grateful that my mom got sober. I think that I was 17,
Okay.
and then yeah, and then I think my dad. I was probably 20 or 21 when my dad got sober. No,
Wow.
my mom
Okay.
would have gotten sober before that because we would. I remember as a child, like, because 17, I was getting ready to move out. So, and it was kind of one of those things that was she was in the program and kind of in and out. So, from as long as I remember, her sobriety and trying to make that a priority was always something for her. So, grow up with AA in the household. It was, I remember going to my dad's cakes. I don't ever remember going to my mom's, but I remember going to my dad's cakes and always sort of thinking, knowing that alcoholism was in my background. But I don't think I ever really understood what the magnitude of what that meant.
So why did your mom get sober then? I mean, was there like an incident? I mean, they stayed together. What was the trigger for your parents to get sober?
I would say that my mom she knew her behavior had to change and that it was affecting her life. So she just had moments of, not having a life that she wanted, I would say. So she, it was at times, a little bit volatile in the household, and, when alcohol is involved and all that good stuff. And so I would say that with that, my mom struggled with that. It was hard for her. And, she had health issues. So there was a lot of, and even myself, like going into my story a little bit, like I remember trying to deal with stress and pain and that sort of thing, physical pain. So I know she was dealing a lot with that and, just trying to numb that part out. And yeah, so she, I was so grateful the day that she got sober because it was affecting the family. And my dad was kind of how I thought of myself when I was drinking. Like, it was a daily habit for him, but he was very, like, I don't ever remember, like, in the later years, my dad ever, like, being mean or, like, alcohol really being a negative effect, other than my mom was sober, made her very uncomfortable that my dad was still drinking. He was a logger. So I'm on Vancouver Island in Canada. So my dad felled trees for a living.
He's a lumberjack.
He was a lumberjack, literally. Yeah. So, and
that's a very manly profession. And I would imagine those guys drink a lot.
And that's the thing, like, he was drinking quite a bit coming home from work. There was drinking, like, they would call his bus, like, they would come home, it's called a crummy. I have no idea why, but like on the crummy every day they would be drinking on the way home from work. And, yeah, it was just the lifestyle that they lived. Thank God my dad did get sober. Because I think it was about a year after he got sober, he got into a life-altering logging accident. So with that, his partner was falling a tree up the hill from him and was cutting down the tree, and dead trees that lean against trees are what they call snags. So the tree had a snag on it, and the snag, so literally like a tree, came flying down the hill at my dad and hit him at the base of his neck, and then it bounced and then hit the top of his head. I honestly believe that if my dad wasn't sober, I don't know if he would have survived.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so did he have like he must have had a brain injury, right?
He definitely has a brain injury from it. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he lose his vision or?
He hasn't lost his vision, but what like his brain injury, so like his cognitive thought at times, like things could get very overwhelming quickly for him because his thought pattern has changed so much. And tinnitus is the thing that he struggles with almost the most, like the ringing in the ear. The
ringing in the ear, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Shoot.
So, yeah. And then he has a bit of hearing loss just from the sound of the saw for so many years.
Yeah. I would imagine. Okay.
Yes.
Poor
So
guy.
thank goodness, I know. Thank goodness my dad was sober at that time. And thank goodness my parents together were sober at the time, because, it's moments like those that can be quite hard on a family, because my dad was not well for a while. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
how did you, from your point of view, did you experience, like, I'm sure it's hard to be objective because it's like whatever you grow up with feels normal, but
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the alcohol as a problem? Did you wish that your parents didn't drink? Did you ever any of those kinds of feelings?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And as the older
Yeah.
sister, did you feel like you had to protect you had a younger sister, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You did a
Yeah,
bunch of
for sure.
parenting and
Yeah, I grew up quite quickly, I think.
yeah.
The thing that I think that's come out of that the most, and I've started to, go to Al-Anon and really understand.
Wow.
But I would say that you peel back the layers of the addictions, right? Like there's different things that you run into, but codependency, I would say that I'm sicker with codependency because of things that impacted me as a child and growing up that I ever was with alcohol. It's the
So
one thing that
you,
I struggle with the most.
I feel like, man, if you're an alcoholic or an addict, codependency is a huge component of that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, because we use, people and alcohol and things to manage our feelings, right? Like, we,
Absolutely.
alcohol is just a symptom of a deeper problem, and it's typically revolving around using external things to control our internal worlds. And yeah, I don't know a single alcoholic that wouldn't be like, yeah, I have a codependency issue.
And I didn't realize it. I think I finally hit a bit of a bottom with codependency this past year.
Oh,
I
really?
thought I was always being very loving. I thought I was always being, like the caretaker was almost like a badge of honor for me,
Hmm.
until I really realized how negatively that was affecting not only myself, but other people. So, yeah, it was, and
Well,
being a mom, like where do you stop and where do your kids begin? And, my kids are
mhm.
older now, and it really made me realize that I've been like that with people my whole life.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that being the caretaker, we think of ourselves as the nice person. Like I'm
Oh,
being nice, and there's like a little bit of
exactly.
martyrdom going on, like self-sacrificing. But
Huge.
I'm interested to know like what you said you bottomed out around that this
Mm-hmm.
year. Can
Yes.
you go into that a little bit?
I found myself, and it was strictly like with my close family. I guess what I would say is that I see behaviors in my family, in regards to their codependency and how it's affecting them.
Hmm.
And I was at a yoga retreat this past summer, and that we had a yoga session just strictly on intergenerational trauma and kind of digging into what that means for me. And all I saw was myself and my mom. So all of a sudden I was my mom. And it was like all of a sudden I could see how I was treating my children in a way that wasn't benefiting them anymore.
Mm,
And it just was like the story stops here. The
the
story
story.
stops here. And there was some situations that came up that I just like it was just smacks in the face one after the other. Which was really hard because again I thought I was being a caretaker, but I clearly could see that it just wasn't best for me or other people.
Can you
It
give
was
me
just
a specific example? Because I think it's sort of slippery, right? Because especially in
absolutely.
recovery, we're taught that service is a good thing. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like if it's, and I don't know a simpler way to say this, maybe you do, but I feel like if our giving is out of balance in some way, then
For sure.
if you can't, then turns into resentment, right? It's
For
like,
sure.
they say it's like giving with strings attached, or, you need to check your motives, but, boundaries are so, they're hard to find sometimes.
It's huge. It's huge. And I would say that with that, I don't want to get too into it because I know my daughter will probably
Oh,
listen to this. So I
let's not
don't
hurt her
want to,
feelings
yeah.
or out her in any
So
way. Yeah.
yeah, it's just more, I
But
found
from your
myself
part,
in a,
yeah, from your
yeah,
part, yeah.
exactly. I found myself in a situation, my daughter's older, so she has her own life to live right now.
How old is your
And
daughter?
she's 24.
Okay.
So she's doesn't live at home anymore. And what I found was that I was getting myself quite involved in her emotional relationships with other people.
Mm.
So like her boyfriends or friendships, something, those sort of things. So I was always the one that would try to fix the problem. I was
Okay.
constantly trying to fix problems, but they weren't my problems to fix. And I found that there was a situation that got quite heightened very quickly. And I found myself, kind of like you drive someone to their to their drug dealer's house when you know that that's not the best thing to do. It kind of
Right,
felt
right.
like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was just kind of like I was just in a situation that I gladly put myself in to try to help her, which wasn't helping her at all.
Hmm.
And so I kind of, I guess, blame myself for her maybe being in relationships she shouldn't have been, because like I would constantly rescue her, if that makes any sense.
It does, and and it's so tricky as somebody who wants to be helpful. It's like that's where the motive is, right? It's like I want to
Mm-hmm.
help. You see somebody you love suffering. It's the natural instinct is to want to help them out of their suffering. But when they're not able to act on advice or
Mm-hmm.
suggestions, it becomes frustrating. Like for me personally, like I've done that a million times, right? I have a
Yeah,
sibling
yeah.
that it's like, oh, if you would only, it's like, what about this? You need to do this. It's like, it's like, you need to do this. For me, it feels so clear, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like like my sister has lessons to learn and she needs to work it out and find out why she's doing what she's doing. And by me,
Exactly.
interfering, it's like I was giving her for me, it was like I was giving my sister an answer she wasn't ready to hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then it became about me and her. And then like I was adding to her problems. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and it's a painful place to be in. It's hard sometimes to just give somebody a safe space so that they can process through their own stuff. So
Exactly. And
and
that's
your
what I've
daughter,
learned.
oh yeah.
I know. And that's the thing, is that I now know that I need to just be supportive and create a space, as opposed to either trying to fix the problem, offer advice, all that sort of thing. Like that's not what she needs from me.
Yeah.
But for me to learn that, then it made me feel like a bad mother.
Oh my gosh. Is there anything worse than feeling like a bad mother?
Yes.
There
So, well, no, and I think like, yes, oh my God, because I
It's
just think
terrible.
like
Yeah.
it was one of the hardest feelings I've ever had. And
Yeah.
I will continue to battle this, because I just can't seem, that's where I feel so bottomed out, is because I find it really confusing. I find it
Yes.
really like I don't know which way to turn sometimes. I don't know what's the right way to be, because I'm so used to being that way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's work that I'm constantly doing right now. So
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of gray area. I mean, with drugs and alcohol, it's kind of black or white. It's like if you're practicing abstinence, then
exactly.
it's black or white. The codependency
Exactly.
issues are the gray area.
Very gray.
Yeah, well, good for you. I mean, I understand that bottoming out is painful, but they say it's the touchstone of all growth. So good for you for
Absolutely. Absolutely.
being emotionally sober enough to go through that. So that's awesome. But let's
And I
take a,
hope it's only, yeah, makes us stronger in the end, right?
it
So, yes.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's take a quick step back because so we talked about your parents. They got
Mm-hmm.
sober when you were a teenager already.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So when did you have any of those thoughts where you were like, I'm never going to be like my parents, or I'm never going to drink like they do, or did you have any of that kind of thinking, or
No, I just, I'm
their
very,
drinking wasn't really a problem for you?
it was, but I don't ever remember thinking like I never want to be like them.
Mm.
I think that I completely detached from it being something that could be a problem for me. And I
Uh,
remember that little voice in the background, kind of like, this you need to look at this. And I just kind of just didn't care. I took my first drink in my best friend's bedroom when I was 16, and we grabbed some vodka from her mom's liquor cabinet and did the whole like fill it up with water thing afterwards. But literally got drunk in her bedroom and had a sleepover, and from there it didn't stop.
Nothing good comes from sleepovers.
Well, and we had them all the time, like me and my friends in high school, like we were constantly at each other's homes. But it was kind of like, I remember it, like I didn't, like in the whole scheme of things, when it comes to like a high school experience, I remember being one of the late bloomers when it came to drinking and stuff, because with 16, all my friends and stuff had been partying and, you know, doing, you know, smoking pot, all that sort of stuff before even I thought about it. And I was pretty, you know, straight-laced about it. And then 16 came, and then my graduation year came, and it's a blur.
It's a blur.
Complete blur.
How long did you drink for?
I drank for 20 years.
20 years. And then did you have an experience where you bottomed out? Was it like a singular experience, or was it like multiple experiences?
I would say that it was multiple. So it came to, I remember, so I got sober in March. And so with that, I remember that September, like the September prior, I had way too much to drink the night before. And it was the first time in my career that I had called in sick to work. And I had, you know, told myself that I had the flu, and I wrote myself a letter. And I wrote myself a letter saying, you know, you called into work sick today because you're hungover. You know, you really need to look at this behavior. If this behavior continues, you're really going to have to go and get some help. You need to, you know, I want you to be, you know, someone in your life, the kids' lives that they look up to, you know, like I don't want to have. So I guess in a way, like I remember like some negative experiences as a kid, and I didn't want that for my kids. So I just, you know, you got to get help. But I won a trip through work in November of that year. I did Dominican Republic, and then I took my family to Cuba. And so it was like, well, God forbid I quit drinking during those times, right? And, you know, did those 2 big trips, and, you know, drank quite heavily, and then came home. And I would say probably about 3 weeks later is when I got sober, because I was done. I was done. I felt
you're done. You're done. Yeah.
I was done. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like the outward circumstances are different for everyone, but the feelings always seem to be the same, right? Feelings of hopelessness, like can't quit. Like, did you have like the can't quit, like you wanted to quit and had trouble quitting? And
yeah. Hence why it was from September when I really identified that I needed to get help. To March when I finally quit. And it was a little bit of, I couldn't quit drinking, and that I didn't want to quit drinking because I had these quote unquote trips coming up. God forbid you do anything like that sober. It scared the crap out of me to even think about that. Which is sad. It's so sad.
Well, it's so funny because that's just a reflection of the insanity, right? Because when you think about what alcohol does to you, it diminishes your capacity to be rational. And I mean, being in a foreign country, it's like you kind of want to have your wits about you, but that's not what we think. We think, oh, if I stop drinking, I'm going to reduce the amount of fun I have. But I mean, I don't know. It just seems like you're vulnerable and you put yourself in jeopardy when you diminish your mental capacity, especially in a foreign country, things that can happen.
Absolutely. And when I heard you say like, you didn't think you could have fun, like, you know, and that was my fear. That was my fear to quit drinking, is that I wasn't going to have any more fun. And what I can say is I have a hell of a lot more fun sober than I ever did when I was drinking.
Amen, sister. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. I can't, when I think about that, it's like, what? Like, and I know
know.
it's part of that thinking, right? It's
It's
just
the
like, it's that
insanity.
fear. Yeah. So much
Total
fear attached to
insanity.
that part. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so I mean, we could do probably a whole other podcast on having fun in recovery. A lot of people when they first get sober are bored, but it just takes a minute to shift gears and to
Mm-hmm.
realize all the things that you can do now that you're sober. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's a big deal. And actually, that might be a good, I don't know if that's a good transition point because I didn't ask you how you got sober. You followed your parents' footsteps into a 12-step
Into AA.
program? Into
Yeah.
AA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was, I remember it being the scariest thing I ever did, but then the best thing I ever did. And
Yeah.
I jumped right into a step study. Like, I think I was at a
Wow.
meeting, and 2 meetings later, I was in a step study and really just jumped into it. When I quit, as much as I didn't want to, I was ready. I
Yeah.
was ready to do the work. I was ready to let that go. It was so hard, but it was the best thing. And I luckily was surrounded by some amazing women. And when I think about it, when I first entered the rooms, it was a women's meeting. It was all older women. There was like, I think the youngest person was maybe like 50. And I remember thinking, like, these aren't my people. And when I walked out of there, the second meeting, I was like, oh yeah, these are my people. Like, they were just so lovely and just took
Yeah.
me under their wing. And yeah,
Yeah. It's
the
funny
whole
because,
judgment.
yeah, the judgment. I mean, it's like they say to you, look for the similarities, not the differences. And in my experience has been the feelings are all the same. We all feel the same on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
We all
Here we
have those,
are.
we have the same fears, we have this, the same sadness, the same concerns, and then the hopelessness. And then we go through that transformation of, like, when you get a sponsor and you start working the steps, it's like that transformation happens even despite us sometimes.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm.
pretty.
Absolutely.
So did
Yeah.
you got a sponsor and you started working steps right away?
I would say that I did not get a sponsor until I was sober for 6 months. And I don't recommend that at all because I'm very headstrong. And I don't know what I was thinking. But in saying that, the lady who ended up being my sponsor was someone who was beside me the whole way. So
Hmm.
essentially, I did have a sponsor, but
Okay.
I didn't ask her to be my sponsor. That was one of the hardest things for me to do. I felt like I was asking somebody out on a date
I
and that I
know.
hadn't dated my whole life. And it was just like, oh my God, what do you do? It was the most uncomfortable moment of my
That's a great way to put it, though. That seems to be the sentiment that I hear the most is it feels like you're asking someone out on a date. It feels like, will you
life.
be my girlfriend?
Yes.
We formally ask someone to be in a relationship. Will you be my friend? It's like kind
Oh,
of weird.
if I could, would have passed a note or something and kind of looked away as they read it.
Check yes or no. Do you like me?
Exactly. Oh
That's
goodness.
funny. Okay, so but I want to transition to the part about, like, the the money part. It's like, how do we develop a
Yes.
healthy relationship with money, right? Because
Yes.
for me, spending money is fun. You hear about it
Yeah.
all the time in recovery about the retail therapy. And
Mhm.
I remember first getting sober and they were like, oh, be careful about switching addictions.
Yes.
Like, oh crap, I was terrified of that too. And but spending money is and shopping can be another addiction. I mean, it is. I mean, it puts some
It is.
people into financial ruin. And I think any line of addiction leads to the same place, which is, I'm broken. I am
Mhm.
fundamentally broken. I'm not worthy. Life is hopeless. I want to kill myself. I mean, it gets dark, right?
It does. It really does. And yes, and I feel that heaviness, because I've worked in I worked in the financial industry for 20 years, and I dealt with
Wow.
many estates when people just were, destitute and at the bottom when it comes to money, and took their own lives in regards to that. So I've seen that, and I've seen what it leaves, and it's heartbreaking. So it does absolutely get to that. And to your point about the addiction part, is that spending money, you actually get a dopamine hit.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know. Yeah. So, I mean, and money is a funny thing. And my personal experience with money is, I grew up kind of on the poor side. Like, I didn't know we were poor because we were in a house, but my mom had 3 jobs. I have a great dad. My parents divorced, but he was not he always paid child support and things like that. But the ideas that I got from my parents around money, it's like you have to work hard for money. Like, I always have like 3 jobs. I have a day job, I have my podcasting, I have Silver Life School, I have all these things. And it's, a little bit of workaholism, but the goal, it always feels like there's a carrot that's just beyond my reach when it comes to money, and I feel like, when people are newly sober, like I've seen it in the women that I sponsor, it's like money is always such a huge, powerful influence on people's lives, and learning how to wrangle that is super important. So maybe I don't know how you want to approach this. So we talked about the 6 steps to having a healthy relationship to money. Should we just go through the 6 steps, or is there sort of like a premise that you want to discuss first? Or
I think what's really the most important part for me as well is, of course, the roadmap to financial recovery. The workshop is really important, but what I like to really introduce myself in the beginning when I start talking about money is to share my story, because my story is so powerful when it comes to money. So I'll keep it short in that way. But when it comes to it, money has always been something that's been quite traumatic in my life. So in saying that, I started, 18 years old, already having the creditors after me for those. Like, remember Columbia House when you used to order?
Oh my
like
gosh, the
CDs
records.
Yeah. So I for sure started like my adult life with like collections, like all that stuff for those things. Like I started like impulse buying very early. I started working at 12 years old, and I made my own money, and money just slipped through my hands as fast as I got it. It was like I was the best dressed, I looked the best, I drank the best. So bringing that into my adult life with my addictions, I drank the best. I did all of the best things with money. And fast forward to just before I was in recovery, money really started to be like, I had incurred a ton of debt, and then entered a marriage, and then, life happens and debt just keeps snowballing. I got sober, and then it got worse. So what it got worse with was I was no longer drinking. So what I was doing was starting to numb out with spending money and stuff. So I was constantly, if I was feeling sad, having a bad day, oh, well, I'm not drinking, so I'm going to go shopping. I have an incident where I blacked out in what we call Winners here in Canada. I think you guys have it as TJ Maxx. So I went in there. I was having a horrible day at work, went in there, don't remember being in there, don't remember what I bought, but I came home and had bags in my hands, walking in the door. My husband's like, oh, what'd you get at Winners? And I had a ton of stuff, and I spent like $700.
Wow. And you don't, it was a blackout,
Nope.
like a drunk blackout?
Absolutely.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I have talked to many clients since then, because when I tell people this story, they're like, yeah, you weren't under the influence. I was like, absolutely not. I was completely detached from my body and unconscious in regards to anything that I was doing.
And you had the trigger was something bad happened at work?
Yeah, I had a bad day at work.
Was it like
hated my job. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that one. Was it like a shame-based experience, or was it humiliation, or?
It was just anger, and I needed an outlet. Yeah, I was angry.
Rage.
I was angry, and I was going to go make myself feel better. And I knew my drug of choice, and off I went. Thank goodness, like when I got home, it was kind of like, oh my God, like I bought so much stuff. And that's all I can say it was. And anyway, so that was really the start of my realization of what was going wrong. So with that, I've been a financial advisor. I was working in a financial advisor role. I worked in a bank, which unfortunately enabled me to use my house as a wallet. So I was refinancing. I was 2 years sober, and I was, sitting with my mentor, and she was like, you hate your job. Like, you should be a money coach. And I was like, oh, well, kind of a fraud. Like, I feel enough of a fraud as a financial advisor. Like, I kind of am a financial mess up. And one of my girlfriends said to me, sometimes you need to learn what you need to teach.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay. So I started looking into that. So I did my own money coaching through my certification. So like, have worked through my stuff. So I know what those feelings feel like when I talk to people. I am building myself from the very, very bottom to where I am now. So what I am speaking to when I have my experience with money is things that have worked for me and things that have been working for my clients. So leading them through that. I work my financial recovery every single day with these steps that I have in the roadmap to financial recovery.
And that is so the roadmap to financial recovery is the workshop, and it's starting December 3rd. Is that right?
Yes, I'm going to have it. I'm going to do it on December 3rd, and it's going to be a live workshop, and it's going to be at 5:00 Pacific time. And then so 8:00 Eastern Standard Time, and all the other applicable ones from there.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm going to go through, I have 6 steps. So I'm going to go through those 6 steps on how to start healing your relationship with money and having a healthy relationship with money.
Yeah.
Because I can't say, one of the first things I learned about money is that nobody has been taught about it.
No, we're not like, nobody seems to talk about money. We're all real good at spending it, but not. And money is energy, and there's so much tied to it, self-worth and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So we're going to go through these 6 steps, and I think you have a PDF worksheet.
I do. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we'll just go over the 6 steps, and then if you want the worksheet, just visit odatchat.com. Look for, I'll leave a link to it in the show notes under your episode, so that people can go and download it. But we'll go over them now, and then they can go to the website and download it later. But let's get into it. I'm going to take notes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So step 1.
So the 6 steps in general. So the roadmap is, first step is belief. Second step is connection. Third step is goals. Fourth is looking at your debt and savings plan. 5 is your spending plan. And then the maintenance of all of that. So the first step is belief. So again, why we want to look at beliefs is that we have never been taught about money. So what we really need to do is stop and connect with ourselves and really understand why we believe what we do with money. Because I think that's a really important part. We really need a foundation to start to build upon. Because some of our, money is evil. I can never make enough money. Like how you said, I have to work really hard for money. I always have a ton of jobs going on. Why do you believe that? Where did this come from? So we talk about, family of origin and all of that stuff when it comes to addiction. And then this is also something that plays into money as well, is what happened to your parents with money? What happened to their parents with money? Because with that starts to really paint a picture of how that's affected your life. Because unfortunately, nobody's been taught about money. So everybody's kind of winging it and doing their thing. And so, everyone's been doing the best they can. So that's what I really like to make sure that everybody knows, because, you have been brought up a certain way with money, and that literally the neural pathways in your brain, I'll go a bit more into it with the workshop, but you literally build neural pathways in your brain with how you unconsciously deal with money and your behaviors with money. There is literally like in your brain. So what we need to do is I refer to it as a highway. You're driving down the same highway every day. We have to start to like turn off that highway and build a new highway, because it's literally going to take those habits to start to change.
So you start with a process of first identifying beliefs.
Exactly.
And then examining, where they come from. Yeah, it does seem like it's generational. I had a dad that was born in the Depression, and his ideas around, money and working hard and saving and not being selfish and, all these ideas. It's weird how subtle it just gets infused into your thinking. So no, that makes a lot of sense. So,
yes.
And then in the belief section, is there a process to change the beliefs?
Absolutely. So what I really like to focus on is, with things like, we want to at first look in the back rear view mirror to kind of see and understand where that came from. And then we want to start driving forward. So we want to look at beliefs and habits and behaviors that we have with money that we want to change. And then what are the action steps that we're going to do to change that? So really having that conscious connection to money.
A conscious connection. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Because my favorite statistic is that 90% of decisions that you make about money are unconscious.
90%.
90%. They're your neural pathways. They're built into your brain. It's what you know. It's what you do. It's just how it happens. And then 10% are conscious. So 10% you're actually thinking about what you're doing.
Wow, that's kind of intense.
It's very intense. Hence my blackout in winners.
Right. Exactly. Okay, very good.
So second step to it is connection. I am all about connection. I am all about talking about money and connecting with your heart. So that money we need to start connecting with how we feel. We need to start pausing. We need to start to really understand those underlying feelings. Because with money, we're reaching outside of ourselves for something to feel different, to look different, to be different.
Yeah.
So how would it be if we started to really connect with ourselves and understand what that is?
Okay.
So what are those? And the most important thing during that is pausing.
Pausing.
Just having that pause. And then, I know a lot of things that happen for me when I talk about connecting with money is what helped people stop drinking. Like what was that piece that really helped you stop something that you never thought was going to be possible?
Right.
How can we turn that? Because most of us, and I believe this to be true, that most of us start to really connect with ourselves, start to really love ourselves. And then, so how do we make that work with our relationship with money?
Okay. I'm just curious, what is sort of like the logistical process of pausing? Like, do you, is this like a morning habit, or is this like maybe in the workshop? Like when do you pause?
All the time. So, and that makes it sound like it's going to be a super make work project. But say, for example, like you go into, and this happens a lot, you go into a store, you go into the grocery store and you need to grab milk and eggs. Mm-hmm. And then, so all of a sudden, ooh, that new almond butter catches your eye, or ooh, there's now this new kind of yogurt out, that sort of thing. That's where we can get really caught up in spending money. Now, that's a very day-to-day thing. It happens to people all the time. You hear people all the time at the cash register. I came in here for one thing, and they have a cart full of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, do I really need that almond butter, or is it just because I want it? Well, do I really need it? Pause. Okay. I probably don't need to spend $15 on almond butter when I have some in my fridge. Right. Those sort of things. Or like, for me, like that store that I went into that I blacked out in has only happened once, but that's a very triggering store for me. I don't go into that store very often because I know, like, so I pause. Like, it's kind of like, oh, I could go to Winners and get this. Oh, but maybe I can go here because I'm not as triggered in that store. Like, I'm just very aware. It's
Okay.
being aware and thinking about your process as opposed to just going in there, not even thinking about it, putting stuff in your cart. Next thing you know, it's like $100 instead of $15 at the grocery store.
Exactly. Yeah, you hear that all the time. People go to Target,
All
it's
the
like,
time.
and then they leave and they go, "Oh, I didn't even buy the thing I went there for."
Yeah, because people are unconscious. They're in that
Unconscious.
90% just going through their day-to-day
Wow.
mode and not even thinking about it.
Okay, so that's like,
Yeah.
okay, frequent
And
pausing. Okay.
and when you talk about the morning practice, my morning practice, and something that I've been doing in my Facebook group a lot is cultivating gratitude with money. So what are
Okay.
yeah, so that's that consciousness, right? We're connecting with our heart, and we're starting to change our mindset and our thought pattern of what the role that money plays in our lives. Oh, I'm grateful I can make my car payment. I'm grateful that I can take my daughter to see the new Frozen movie. I'm
Mhm.
grateful that I can do this, like, and not go into debt over that. And really kind of, a lot of people are focused on what they can't do with money. Let's focus on what we can do with money.
Oh, focus on what you can do. You know
Yeah.
what's interesting is my mom is probably she's the best I know with money. And I used to hear her and I used to think she was crazy. She would say, "Oh, I'm so grateful I can pay my bills." She would always tell me, "Oh, I just paid my
Mm.
bills. I am so grateful I can pay my bills." And I was like, "Pay your bills? Boring." It's like but it's interesting because what she was doing is she was practicing gratitude of abundance.
Mm. I love that.
Yeah, right? And she's
Yeah,
so good with
yeah.
money. I want to be like her when I grow up. This is
I
how.
love it when I grow up.
Okay. I know I'm 51, a late bloomer. Awesome. Okay. I'm sorry. I keep derailing you. We have
Not at all.
four more things to go. So the next one is goals.
Yeah, we talk about goals. So money needs you to be clear on what you want to do with it. We can't just say, oh, I want to pay off debt. Okay, well, how much debt do you want to pay off? A lot of people have no idea about that number. I'm going to talk about that in the next step.
Okay.
But think about, again, connect with your heart. What would feel good with money? Do you want to, I have many clients that are kind of like, I just want to adult with money. I want to start saving for my retirement. I want to put money in savings. I don't want to continually spend what's in my savings account. I want to actually feel responsible. So, it could be saving money for a new home. You could want to go on a vacation, all that sort of thing. Like really start to pin down what you want to do with money, because the overall goal is to start to live your hopes and dreams with money. That mindset and that manifestation is going to start to result in you being successful. What do you want to do with that? So this
Yes.
starts the seed of what can money do for you.
Right. And yeah. So it's really not about money. It's about what you want to do, like what it represents, like what you can do with it. And it
Exactly.
sounds a lot like you're talking about being clear on intentions.
Exactly. That's exactly right. What is your intention? What are your
What is
financial
your
goals?
intention?
Yeah.
Did you
And
ever
if you want
read?
to,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you ever read
no,
Gary Zukav's Seed of the Soul?
state of the soul. Yes. So good. Yes.
It's all
So
about
good.
intention, like
Yes.
cultivating intention, and
Yes.
that's what this sounds like. That just
Exactly.
really rings true and powerful to me.
And how amazing would it feel to finally have a time that you would be able to change that mindset again and say what money can do for you instead of what it can't? Because we're so focused on what money can't do for us. Oh, I can't afford that. Oh, I'll never be
Wow.
able to go on a trip. Oh, I'll never be able to do with that. And I'm like, well, no, heck no, you won't be able to do that because that's what you think. And
Right?
they're
That's what
like,
you're putting
oh.
out. I know.
If you think you can't do it, you're not going to do it. So
Right.
what about thinking about what you can do? Like, let's start building a plan. Let's start manifesting the crap out of this and getting some good stuff out of it. Like,
Love
how
it.
amazing would that feel? Yeah. So be
Love
clear, have clarity. So in the workshop, we're going to start to break down as well, kind of like that. I want to go on vacation. Okay, well, when do you want to go on vacation? I want to go to vacation in 2 years. How much is it going to cost? How long do you have to save for that? How much do you have to save every paycheck? Really getting specific, breaking it down.
Get specific. Love it.
Yeah, getting specific.
All
So
right.
step 4, we look at a debt and savings plan. So, you know, I think it's 83% of the world is in debt of some sort. So I don't necessarily have a ton of people that aren't in any debt. But there is some, there is some that don't have any debt. But most people that, are signing up for a financial recovery workshop have some sort of debt that is one of those things that's hanging over your head. So with that, it's kind of like the goals that you set out. How much debt do you have? I ask so many people that, and they have no idea. There's no connection. So we go back to that connection piece.
Okay.
Pull your statements, have a look. I call it the ostrich sticking their head in the sand. They've got their head so far down in the sand that they don't want to start to look at what's actually happening.
Yeah.
If they don't look, it's not happening. We need to look and come to an acceptance of what's happening, because the more we resist it and start to make a plan out of it, the farther back we get.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you consider like a home mortgage? Like is that, because when I think of debt, I think of like credit card debt as being bad.
Yes.
So I avoid that like the plague, but
Yes.
I still have a mortage and a car payment.
When it comes to your debt and savings plan, because like overall that starts to become, you have your amortization of how long you're going to have your mortgage paid off in. So we do include that. But when it comes to it, like when I'm talking about a plan, I'm talking about credit card debt, lines of credit, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's so many people that have credit card debt that have no idea how much it is in credit cards.
I know, it's scary.
And it's very scary to look at. So that's what I hope to kind of bring to that mindset starting to change, and that connection with your heart, and that cultivating gratitude, because that'll start to bring a different feeling about that. So it's all about that feeling you have with money.
Yeah. And I think I love the idea of a workshop, because you're able to look at it with support.
Yes.
And like
exactly.
Support and an exit strategy, and like put a plan to it, so, to sort of mitigate, like identify what the fear is and then put a plan to mitigate that fear. But it's
exactly.
And then it normalizes it when you're doing it in a group, right? So it's like you begin to see, okay, it almost like removes the shame element, which seems to make us want to just push it away. Like it's painful to look at. So doing it with support, doing it with other people who are in the same boat, you can kind of, remove the shame and normalize it. That makes a lot of sense. I love that.
It does. And I love group coaching or workshops that it's like you don't feel alone, because money can be very, very isolating. Because it's something we don't want to talk about. And in this society a lot, and again, nobody's been taught about money, so it's very taboo sometimes to talk about it. And if you're living in a money hell, it just makes it even worse, because that anxiety is just flowing. So how about a safe place where it can be like, oh my God, I'm not by myself.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that you can hide.
Absolutely, you can. Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
But then there's only so much of that hiding you can do, where it really starts to affect your health. It starts to affect your job performance, your relationships. Divorce is one of the major things because of finances.
Oof. Yeah.
So it just starts to crumble. So I call it the money life drain, where, it's when you empty out a sink, the swirl is kind of slow at first. And then once it really starts to pick up and like move really, really quickly near the end of it. And that's the thing with money. It starts to spiral really slowly. And before you know it, it's completely out of control and you're bottomed out. You're just like, you're drained.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we talk about with the debt and savings plan, what I talk about is stabilizing your debt. So having, and I have those tips in the workshop of how to stabilize that debt, so you stop incurring debt.
Okay.
Then you also want to have those start habits of saving. Those habits, because starting those habits of saving, stabilizing your debt, and then the plan moves forward from there.
Got it. That's okay. Brilliant. Okay. And then we have step 5. I can't read my own writing. Something about spending.
Yes. Yeah, it's something about spending.
Something about
It's your
spending.
spending plan.
A
So
spending plan. Okay.
so instead of the budget, because budget feels very restrictive,
I
I
love
call it
it.
I call it a spending plan.
That's
So
actually
again,
genius, right? Because like we respond, like NLP, the neuro linguistic program, people have an emotional tie to words. It's like
absolutely.
hardwired in your brain. So
Yeah,
everybody
I'd say
loves a
budget.
spending.
Yeah, budget, people shut down. It's like,
Shut
okay, they're
down.
gone, done, they're detached, we're not here anymore. Where
Okay.
again, it's like, what can we do with money?
Okay.
What can we spend our money on? Not what
Brilliant.
can't we spend our money on?
Yeah.
So every month we want to look in the drivers, we want to look through the windshield, where are we driving towards? What can we spend this month? So it just starts to change that language about, again, what we can do with money. But what a spending plan is that you really start to look at the details of what comes in and out of your account. Because 95% of the people I talk to don't track their finances.
I'm all guilty.
Yeah, it's a thing.
I do it
So
at like a very high cursory level, but like the day-to-day stuff, like I know some people who like look at their bank state, like every time they swipe their card, they're either logging it somewhere or the next morning they sit down and log into the computer to see what did I spend.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't do that.
Yeah. So with that, like, and that's kind of a step I think is really important to take,
Yeah.
because you're consciously connecting to money. You know, it's like, okay, I spent that at the grocery store. How did that feel? Like, oh, I
Oh,
only spent my $15 when I went in for milk and eggs
yeah.
instead of spending $100 on other things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's celebrate that. Put it in your gratitude journal. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate.
Wow, that's
Connect with your
amazing.
money. Yeah.
And it's so
Yeah.
funny. So nobody uses paper money anymore, really. It's like
Exactly.
it's like we're in this futuristic time warp where it's just
It is.
credits.
Absolutely. We're in a
So just,
plastic society and we have completely detached from it. So Tosha Silver wrote a brilliant book called It's Not Your Money because of
I
that.
love that book.
Because, yeah, it's like she is so bang on and people aren't connecting with it at
Uh-uh.
all. And
Yeah.
they're just treating it like it's, yeah, because it doesn't really exist.
It doesn't feel
So there's,
real. I don't even get a
yeah,
paycheck. It goes right into my bank account.
exactly.
It shows up as
Yeah.
credits or units or something. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. So having that spending plan and starting to become really conscious of what's going in and out of your account, and
Mm-hmm.
then cultivating again that connection. Oh my goodness, I got paid today. You know, thank goodness. Where's that going to go? What can I do with
What
that?
can I do?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then step 6,
Step 6 is maintenance.
maintenance.
So, like our recovery, we are wanting to, have some sort of plan in place if something goes sideways. So of course, when we're new to recovery, I don't know a lot of people that would, walk into a bar and just plan to sit there the whole night. And, it's just, one of those things you just don't want to put yourself in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So with maintenance, you want to put things in place that are going to work for you. So that would be, what are your daily habits that are working? So again, the gratitude, logging into your online banking, whatever works for you. I do it a couple times a week just to kind of do
Okay.
that check-in, make sure it's always there. Communication is huge when it comes to money. If you have a partner, if you have
Yeah.
someone in your life that you work on with money, my husband and I have a weekly money meeting.
Wow.
Every Sunday night, we're like, okay, what do we do? Where's our money at? What's in the budget for this, or spending plan? What's in the spending plan for this week? So we're really on the same page so that there isn't this secretive, because I was very secretive with money before and I could hide it. And
Yeah.
so now it's like my accountability piece to like talk to my
Mm.
partner about it. One of the main things with obstacles is think of obstacles that are going to come up for you. So you're going to have your car needs winter tires, or like your car broke down and you need to have it fixed. obstacles are going to be in place. So that's where we're backing up to the debt and savings plan, where we're going to start putting money into savings for when those sort of unexpected things come up, so that we're not going into debt again. So there's a few different pieces, and this is one of the biggest pieces, is the maintenance part, but really keeping that momentum up. You've taken steps to work on your recovery with money. What are you going to do to keep that going? Because if you just like do it and then you don't keep doing the work, just kind of like our recovery, then it's very easy for us to get sidetracked and have a quote unquote relapse of some sort.
Right. I mean, if our default is to go 90% unconscious, it is super easy to just go back to default.
Exactly.
When you're not conscious.
Exactly. And like, it's that connection and celebrating, like when something goes really, really good, but then when something goes really bad and you're like, oh crap, because bad stuff's going to happen. It's the human condition. What do you do with that? Right? Like you're like, oh crap, that was not good. What did I learn from it? Let's celebrate what we learned and move forward.
I like that. So even when it's a perceived mistake, you celebrate the lesson. Yeah, because I mean, it's like we were talking about earlier, that pain is the touchstone of all growth, and that is the purpose of pain. I always tell my girls, like in recovery, and it seems to apply here, that when something happens, it's a lesson, and let the pain burn you a little bit, so that the next time you're about to step up to the plate to make that same mistake, you remember what it feels like.
Yes.
And hopefully
it's so important. And I don't want to make it sound all Pollyanna, like, oh, like be positive, do this, because like I said, it's the human condition that we're going to feel negative. We're going to feel sad. We're going to feel angry when it comes to money. Feel those, write about it. Why am I feeling like that? Instead of, when you get to those points, going out, and then I call it like the fuck it button. Like, just don't because it's very
I have
easy
one of those.
when you get, everybody does. And we're used to pressing it, right? It's like, screw it, now my whole plan's out of whack. But it's like, no, like, okay, that happened. Let's pick up and move on.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I am so I signed up for your for the workshop, so that I'm so excited to dig into this. I'm going to invite my husband to join me. He may or may not, but this is something that I'm really excited and ready to move forward with. So the roadmap to financial recovery. I'll leave a link in the show notes along with the worksheet, but you want to throw out the URL?
Yes. Well, my website is lindaparmer.com. So the workshop information is on there as well.
Okay.
So you can just click on the link on the website, and the workshop information is there. And also my Facebook page, Linda Parmer Coach, has all of the links or Linda Parmer Coaching on Facebook, and then Linda Parmer Coach on Instagram. So it has all the links to the sign up for the workshop as well on there.
Okay, great. So your last name is Parmer?
MAR.
Oh, MAR. Sorry, I'm so glad I asked. I cannot spell, as you can see.
Okay. You know what? Everybody thinks it's ER. Yeah, everybody does.
So I'm normal, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Nobody is fooled by that. Okay, well, I will definitely leave the link in the show notes, and you can download the worksheet for the 6 steps in the show notes as well. But wow, that I certainly learned so much, and I'm looking forward to the workshop December 3rd at 5:00 Pacific Standard Time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so glad to have you there. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, no, and thank you. I mean, money is not something that I don't think we've ever talked about that in detail on the podcast before. So thank you so much for being willing to sort of give us a quick little preview to the workshop. And I highly encourage everyone to, it's a free workshop, right?
It sure is. Yes.
I probably should have mentioned that in the beginning. It's a free workshop.
It's a free workshop. Yes. So, and we're going to do a lot of action steps. So the PDF that I'm going to send you as well that is going to have some action steps in it, but we'll also work through those in the workshop, but just really starts to get you thinking on what the next right thing is for you to do.
Yeah, I always like doing it in a group, in a workshop, because as other people share their experiences and ideas, it just it gets me clear on, like you said, the intentions, and gives me ideas on how to move forward, and helps me to connect, not just with the problem, but with the solution too. So
absolutely,
all about solution. Well, Linda, thank you so much for your time this morning, and I look forward to seeing you in the class.
Absolutely. See you December 3rd.
December 3rd. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. I need a cut sign. That was amazing. Thank you so much.